Welcome to the board wrap up for the month of December. We wish everybody a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. We are about to the holiday break for our Ponca City students and teachers and administrators. The Ponca City Board of Education met for the December board meeting, and Dr. Pennington is with us. We missed Dr. Pennington last month, but Brett Smith ably filled in, and we're glad to have you back. This is a time of year, I know, where you start talking about upcoming bond projects,
Right.
Dr. Pennington, and
Right.
I know that nothing is in concrete, but part of the discussion last night, if you could tell our viewers, is about what's going to be on our next bond issue.
Yeah, what we did last night is Brett did a review for the board of kind of what we've done. And, you know, we've really done a lot of things. I mean, if you look around, I think sometimes when you live someplace and you know, you kind of see something being constructed and then it's done and then you kind of forget about it. But we really have done a lot to upgrade and modernize our schools over the last 10 years. Our facilities, you know, are definitely in a lot better shape than they were 10 years ago, but we still got a lot to do. You know, some of it is going back and doing some things over again. For example, we talked about East last night. You know, East was the first building that we put what we would have considered, you know, 7 or 8 years ago to be a secure entrance where you come through a set of doors, you have to be buzzed into the building by a secretary, you have to go through a little kind of security check with a lobby guard first. But that structure that we created is just glass. And, you know, what we learned from Sandy Hook is that you know, you got to have more than glass. You better have some kind of bullet resistant. I'm not going to say bulletproof, because I've learned over the last 2 years that you'd be amazed at how many grades of glass there are, and what real bulletproof is. There's a difference between bulletproof and bullet resistant, and so we're going to need to go in, and we need to go in and upgrade that. It's not a whole lot of money, but it is pretty expensive. So you have issues like that. We've done lots of work in our buildings, but we haven't really gone in at the elementary schools and done a lot of work, a lot of millwork. And so what is millwork? Well, that's cabinets, the woodwork in the buildings, just the things that are part of a facility upgrade. We've taken care of the flooring. We've redid some restrooms. We're putting new front entrances in. But, you know, the next thing we need to look at is going in and updating our cabinet work. And, you know, as we have lots of cabinets. We have lots of storage. We have lots of cabinets throughout the district. So those are things to look at. At Lincoln, we need to move that entrance. We need to do something to the entrance of that building, which will be a big project. And then really, with everything we've done, we really haven't really gotten into the high school yet. We haven't gone in and updated the Anderson building or updated the Howe building in the way that we've updated other facilities across the district. And then you look at our athletic facilities. And the reality is that when we travel across the state, our athletic facilities are not, they don't look as good as some other, and you know, Phil, you do that a lot. I mean, you've been to lots of places, and it's just that our athletic facilities are starting to look old. They're not in bad shape. They're clean, but they're just starting to look old, and so we have to think about that, and do we want to do anything about that? And then the other issue that kind of came up last night that really hasn't been on the radar, but the issue of an athletic training facility and a place that not only has where your athletic trainers have a bigger area in which to treat injuries with, but also you know, what do we need to do? Do we need to do anything with our weight room facility? And then what about an indoor practice facility? You know, how do those? So, and then on top of all that, you still have the issue of Performing Arts Center. I mean, that's still something that you know if you were to ask me, well, what are your top 2 or 3 priorities? Well, the Performing Arts Center sets in there for me. The problem with the Performing Arts Center is that, it takes, you've got to move some things around. If we're going to build that facility and attach it to the high school, which is kind of what we want to do, then we've got to move the baseball field. Well, you can't move the baseball field until you actually own all the property that's north of the high school, and we don't own all the property north of the high school. There's still a couple of places that we need to purchase, and when we started that process 7 or 8 years ago, we made the decision that we weren't going to eminent domain anybody. We were going to sell when they were willing to sell, and we have a couple of properties there that we don't own yet. And so, we can't address the Performing Arts Center until we get that property bought. So, there's just lots of things, and then, what we did, the study we did was done in 2010. Are there some things that are missing? And so that's kind of the discussion we had last night. Obviously, the prices that we put on things in 2010 are not good today, so we need to reprice. So eventually we'll sit down with the board, probably in a work session of some kind, where we'll come in, we'll present pricing, we'll put a bond package together, and probably sometime next fall we'll come to the voters of this community asking them to continue to invest in our schools. And we don't take that for granted. We're very fortunate that the people of Ponca City have continued, when we put projects together, that they've been very good to support those projects. We don't get it right all the time, and so when we don't get it right, they'll let us know that, and we'll restructure whatever we've done until we can find something that our voters are willing to approve. We definitely have transportation needs. It's time to buy some more buses. We try to not have a bus older than 10 years old, and we've had I've been here 10 years, we've probably had 3 transportation issues, and so it's time to do that again. Obviously, technology is a huge investment in this district, and it's something we could not do without bond issue dollars. If we don't pass bond issues to continue to buy computers and updated technology to put in the hands of our teachers and students, without bond issues, we couldn't do that. And so we've been very fortunate that our voters have been willing to support that, and obviously there will be technology will be a big part of whatever we do. So it's kind of what we talked about last night, and hope in the next several months you'll hear more from us about that.
Give us an update on the new administration building right there on Grand Avenue. If you drive by that, every day it changes. A lot of work is going into that. That's one of the buildings that is not a school building, but still had to be totally renovated.
Right.
I know you're excited. What is the anticipation as to moving into that?
Well, we're hoping the 1st of March. Of course, the original timeline was December, and again, it's construction, it's a renovation. You always run into things. I really think that I hope that the community is happy with what we've done with that building. We've talked about it before. We had a decision to make. That decision was either to sell it or tear it down, because when I came here in 2004, it was in pretty tough shape, and so it's a good building. It's a solid building. It's a historic building. We really felt like we really hated to sell it, and we really didn't want to tear it down. So the next question is, then what do you do with it? Well, it's interesting. I've had some people ask, when did we write the word administration? When did they come in and carve that into the top of the building?
Right.
Well, in 1922 when they built it. And but people don't realize that, because most folks think about it as the 9th grade or the annex as a classroom building. But the reality is that building, the front part of it, was constructed as the original administration building for the district. And I think sometime in the 1980s, they bought this building that we're in currently and moved down here. So for us, it's a chance to reclaim a part of the history of Ponca City. It's a chance to dress up a building that sits on Main Street, which I think is important to this community. It gives us an opportunity to move some things around. To move our child nutrition department from where they are now to this location, which allows them to have some larger freezer space, which they need. to keep up with the current requirements by the U.S. DA on school lunch programs. We're looking right now at moving our alternative school to this location. And if all that happens, we're having conversations about starting a daycare for the children of teachers and support personnel where our current alternative school is. So, on the outside looking in, you say, well, gee, why does anybody need that space? Well, we always need space. And so we're looking forward to that. I'll be honest, I'm looking forward to having an office with a window. I've been, people don't realize that this facility has no outside windows except for at the very front of the building where you walk in, and I'm sure when they built this, they thought that was energy efficient, but you wouldn't do that today. There's all kinds of rules about, and lots of research on outside lighting and the value of that. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, and I think that what we're doing, it's not cheap. Obviously, when you renovate a building and you're moving as many employees as we are to that, it's going to be expensive, but it's going to give us a better board space. It's going to give us more conference space. It's going to allow us to do more professional development in the district. We see lots of positives for this. People have asked, well, how are you paying for it? We're paying for it with a combination of bond dollars and building fund money. We've been saving building fund money up because when we just felt like that was better than easy. It was better to use building fund dollars than to go back to the taxpayers and ask them for additional taxpayer dollars on that building when we still have other needs that affect kids. So that's what we've done. We're looking forward to it. And when we get ready to open, we'll have an open house and we'll allow the community to come in and look. I think we've preserved the building. It's going to look different because we gutted it. It's not going to look anything like it did when somebody went to school there. But I think it's a nice addition and it'll be good for our community.
One of the other issues that we talked about 2 months ago but haven't addressed is our school board positions that were open. Although we won't have any elections, we are going to have those positions filled.
Right. You're always happy when you don't have a board election, and the primary reason for that is because it costs the district money, and so that's an election expense that we won't have to pay. Plus, it means that you have continuity on your board, and that's important because it's important to have institutional history when you talk about bond issues, when you talk about curriculum decisions, when you talk about school finance and how we've made the budget decisions that we've made. What I'm excited about is the two individuals I have on my board that have decided to stay are two people that were here when I was employed. And that's pretty unique 10 years after, when you've been in a district for 10 years, that you still have two people on your board who were there when you were hired. Now, one of those had left and come back, and that's Marvin Clark.
Right.
And then Don Newsom's been on the board. I think this will be starting year 16 for Don. So we're very fortunate to have people in this community who are willing to step up and to serve, because it is a service position. These people don't get paid anything. And sometimes it can be a pretty heated position. Sometimes it draws the public's attention for a lot of reasons, and especially people who don't necessarily really understand how school governance works, and they want a board member to personally take care of something, which they cannot do. Board members only have authority when they sit as a board, and their responsibility is to make policy and then to hire a superintendent to oversee the operations of the district on a day-to-day basis. And so, our board understands that role, and that's what makes this really a good school district to work in.
Let's address the December board meeting and something that, anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to address with your constituents.
Well, we had a report from Chris Littlecook. Chris does a report every year on our Native American programs as it relates to impact aid money that we receive, and it's just one of those things. Sometimes I saw a thing that tossed the paper today that said that Oklahoma is, I think, 24th in the nation in the amount of federal money that we receive. You know, sometimes people think the federal government doesn't do anything for us, but think about $9,000, almost $10,000 a year of dollars come from the federal government to the state of Oklahoma per citizen. One of those programs that provides money is Impact Aid. And Impact Aid is a federal program that reimburses school districts for lost revenue because they have property that is somehow under the control of the federal government that they don't get tax revenue on. So for us, that money is tied up in housing for Native American. It's either, it would either be the property that we had, White Eagle, which is land that is tribal land, and the tribes do not pay taxes, don't pay property taxes on that land. And then it'd also be property that is owned here inside the community. So sometimes the tribes will go in and maybe they may build a housing addition. Sometimes they'll buy homes and they'll rent those or to tribal members. Since that house is held by the tribe and it's held in trust, then they don't pay property taxes on those homes. And so what the Impact Aid does is supposed to pay the property tax for them. In our district, we should receive about $600,000 a year in Impact Aid money. Unfortunately, they'll receive $50,000 a year. And the reason for that is Impact Aid is not only Indian housing, but it's also military bases, any federal buildings, any facility, and so you think about the United States, that's a lot of federal property, and like lots of things, the federal government doesn't fund the Impact Aid program at the level it needs to in order to fully fund their obligation, which is one of the frustrating things about working with the federal government. We basically get about somewhere in the neighborhood of little less than 10% of the money that we're entitled to. We get about $50,000 a year in Impact Aid money. Part of that is because of again, that's prorated anyway, but because of the size of our school district, they prorate us even more. So if we had less students and the same amount of land that was not taxed, we would actually get more money. So it's one of those kind of quirks of where we are, and it's frustrating to deal with. And again, there's lots of things that we can all sit around and look at the federal government and talk about what they don't do and what they should do. The two big ones for education are Impact Aid and special education funding. Those are two of their obligations that they've not kept their promises to the school districts across the country or the citizens of this nation. And I think people talk about the federal government and people's distrust of government. I think a lot of that could be solved if the feds would just do what they're supposed to do. Just pay the bills you've got, just fund the programs that you want us to do before you start doing new things. So, but that we talked about, but Chris made a presentation and talked about the involvement of our Native American students, and basically that our involvement in extracurricular programs with our Native American kids is pretty consistent with their percentage of the student body, which is about 22% of our students are Native American students.
As we come up on the holidays, I've got to talk about something with you, and that's Dan Larson and our band programs. We talk a lot about the sports and some of the other curricular activities, but if people pay attention, this year our choir, our band, our orchestra has received so many numerous awards that Dan and the work he does has to be considered some of the state's best.
Well, several years ago, Dan was recognized as the National Orchestra Teacher of the Year. So obviously he's a gem that we have, and we're just so fortunate that Dan continues to stay and work with our kids. He will be missed when that day comes. David Christie and what he's done with our band the last few years. Our choir programs are consistently good, and they do a lot of performing this time of year, and our citizens miss out by not going to see them. But that falls right back into my performance arts facility discussion. We need to have a performing arts facility where our orchestra and our concert band and our choir programs can perform in such a way that our people can hear them at their best. and a facility that is easy for people to get in and out of. And we don't have that right now. We don't have a stage big enough in this district that we can set our orchestra up on. We don't have a facility that the sound acoustics in it is good enough that you can hear the real music that they play. I had an opportunity a few years ago to go to the state teachers music conference, music teachers conference, and our orchestra played and then they were followed by the orchestra from Oklahoma State University. I promise you, our orchestra was better, and not just a little bit better, but a whole lot better. And I've attended orchestra concerts here throughout the years. It's just, you can't even describe the difference in the quality of the sound in the facility we were in Tulsa. And you know, we just ought to do that. And I know, because when the last time that I mentioned this, I had some people, stop me on the street. We don't need to do that. That's too much money. And performing arts centers are expensive. You can't do it cheaply. You have to do it the right way. But the reality is that while this community is not the same that it was 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago, we still have a thriving music program. And that's with substandard facilities. I just can't imagine what it would be like if we had quality facilities and then we had a facility that made it easy for people to go to the concerts. Right now, it's hard. You go to the high school, you have to walk up a couple of flights of stairs. The seating's not good. It's not a comfortable place to sit. There are obstructions to your sight lines, and you can't fix that. We brought an acoustical engineer in from New York City several years before we started this project, and he just flat said, you can't fix this facility. Now, can you do some things to make it a little bit better? Yes, but will it be the equivalent of what they have at Stillwater, Bartlesville, Union Jinks, Broken Arrow, Owasso, Sand Springs, and Sapulpa? Enid. And I can throw Blackwell, Oklahoma in there. They have a better performing arts facility than we do. And so the answer to that question is no, it's not. And, again, for some people, they see that as a waste of money. To me, I see it as an investment in our kids. And, I hope that that's something that we can get accomplished in the near future. And it's something that our community, to me, this is important enough that, the bond issues we've done in the past, we've been pretty good at keeping our millage. We try to keep our mills under 22 mills. But to me, a performing arts center is something that's so needed that we may need to go above a little bit. That we may need to ask for a little bit more tax revenue for just a few years to get that building built. The question is, how big does it need to be? Does it need to be big enough to hold the entire high school student body? Can we get by with an 800-seat facility? Those things are all up for discussion. Obviously, they all affect the price of the building. But we need to do that. I tell you, I was so surprised when I came to Ponca City 10 years ago and I saw our performing arts facility. I was just stunned because Ponca City has a great reputation. I just knew that we must have a great facility. And we don't. And I think for years the community was fooled by the Hutch. They thought the Hutch Center, the Hutch wasn't built to be a performing arts center. And it's just, this is something that we should have taken care of. I've been here 10 years, I can say we now, I think. This is something we, the citizens of Ponca City, should have taken care of years ago. We shouldn't be talking about this in 2014. We should have done this back in the 70s or 80s. We should have done this a long time ago. We should have built a high quality performing arts center. Now, we probably need to remodel it right now. So I guess the good thing is that we can build one new. Another thing to keep in mind is when you do something like this, this doesn't go away. If we build a $20 million facility, that facility is going to be here 50 years from now and 100 years from now. And so for me, I guess part of the issue is, do you believe in the future of Ponca City? You know, and I've got to say, how can you not? When you look at the hits that we've taken from an economic positions, and look at where we are now, basically full employment. You can't find a house to live in this community. So we haven't grown. We haven't had that big spurt of growth, which hopefully will happen here someday soon. But the reality is, we can't take a bigger economic hit than we've already taken. They're not going to dismantle the refinery. And so, with that being said, then we need to be future focused, and we need to focus on where we are today and where we're going to be, and we got to stop worrying about what's happened in the past. And we do that a lot here, and we need to get by that.
You, along with your administrators, your teachers, and all your students are going to take a little break here.
We are.
We want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas to you, and just remind people that the board offices, they're going to be closed for a couple of weeks.
We closed during the. I think our last. I don't remember. I don't know if we closed the 20th. I'm not sure exactly what date it is, but won't be officially open, but there are always people here working. So we're looking forward to a break just like everybody else.
Have a nice Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Pennington on our board wrap-up for December.